Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're joining us. Before we get started for today's presentation, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land from where this virtual presentation is being hosted. Our host for this webinar, Allison Ashcroft, is joining us from the Canadian Urban Sustainability Practitioners Network, who is located on the traditional, unceded, and ancestral lands of the Lekwungen-speaking Coast Salish, specifically the Esquimalt, Songhees, and the Wasanich peoples. This is also known as Victoria, British Columbia. I would also like to acknowledge that a significant portion of our work was influenced by other territories where Dylan and I are located. I am calling in from my home on the Musqueam 2 reservation, shown here in the photograph, the view outside my backyard. This is in modern Vancouver. Each of us are guests on these lands. Dylan is joining us from Slamin territory in the city of Powell River. Each of us are very humbled to call these places our home. It's important today that we take time to acknowledge whose territory we are on as we consider today's topic of equity and energy poverty. Our energy system in BC has disproportionately impacted Indigenous communities through its disturbance to Indigenous lands and resources, and imposing a colonial energy system that has made many rural and remote Indigenous communities reliant on expensive sources of energy, such as diesel and electricity. Approximately 18,000 Indigenous homes in BC live in energy poverty, while energy companies are beginning to show improved program support for our Indigenous community members. They have a long way to go before they build the trust that has been lost. During today's webinar and in our work to build better and more equitable energy programs, let us be mindful of whose territory we are on and prioritize serving our Indigenous community members better. I invite you, if you haven't done so yet, please include in the chat box which territory you are joining us from today. Thank you. And I'm going to go back to Allison.
Okay, not to call you out there, Stuart, but that was you. So maybe check with your audio there. Thanks so much, Laura. So really excited to talk to you guys about this project today. As you know, we're pretty passionate. I'm pretty passionate about our energy poverty work, and we've just had an amazing project here with this team that you see on the slide here. So that was Laura who just provided that really thoughtful land acknowledgement, and she was equally thoughtful in her with us. We've been working with Laura since October on this project. She was a dream come true from a UBC. She's a UBC Sustainability Scholar. So this is an unfunded. It's funded through, I think BC Hydro actually supports UBC for the Sustainability Scholar programs out here. So she came to us via application and was just a standout as an applicant. As you can see, she's also a fellow with the Alberta Energy Futures Lab, and she's doing her master's in community planning with a specialization in Indigenous community planning. Dylan and I have had a lot of work together too over the last year or so. And if not even formal work, we've been doing a lot of informal conversations around energy poverty and energy justice. Why I think it's really neat is that I obviously work with Canada's large cities and the urban centers through a CUSP membership, and Dylan and on the flip side works primarily with rural, remote, and Indigenous communities. Brings a really nice combination of experience around the topic of energy justice, and I've learned a ton from Dylan. He's also got a really beautiful background in deep utility regulatory policy that I don't have, and so I found working with him to be a real joy. Next slide, please, Laura. So I just wanted to ground us a little bit in what this project did and did not do, and I'm not going to go into like the specifics of it, but I do want to say, so we're looking today at utility-led income qualified programs, so otherwise known as low income programs that are offered by utilities. And we did a specific look at the BC program here called the Energy Conservation Assistance Program. So I just wanted to say that the report and our findings today are based on recommendations and findings that we had around the efficiency and effectiveness of this program and its outcomes and impact. But we looked at it within its current system. So we didn't look at, for instance, whether or not these programs should be funded through ratepayer dollars, whether they should be administered by utilities at all. And we didn't get into the deep conversation around equity and equitable access to deep retrofit benefits. So we know that if a household is spending $3,000 a year on their energy bills, they're paying more towards those energy conservation programs than someone who's paying $2,000 a year for their energy bills. But oftentimes that person who's paying $3,000 a year has no means by which to access these other great rebate programs for deep retrofits. And a lot of the time, these low-income programs have been fairly weatherization or fairly surface-based, not very impactful to reducing their energy bills. And so those are the bigger issues that we want to explore in future. So what today is really focused on the current system as it is. How can we improve upon it? How can we make it more efficient and more seamless for people to participate and make it all the way through the program? And then how can we make sure that the outcomes that are being achieved, yes, to reduce greenhouse gases and energy consumption, but also to reduce energy bills in a material way to the household. So I'll pass it off to, I think Laura is going to go into first talking about the work that she's done and some of the findings, and then we'll start talking at the end about some of the process-based outcomes that we came up, process-based recommendations that we came up with, and then some of the more outcomes-based recommendations. So over to you, Laura, and thanks very much.
I think we actually have Dylan up first.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
No worries. Thank you very much for the introduction, Allison and Laura. Can everyone hear me? Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, for those that don't know me, I'm the energy policy lead for Ecotrust Canada and our community energy initiative. And I just want to kick things off a little bit by just reminding us, or going through a little bit, what are we talking about when we talk about energy poverty? So Laura, if you can go to the next slide here. So yes, let's start with the qualitative experiential reality of energy poverty. When we talk about energy poverty, we're talking about households that struggle to pay for basic or core energy services. Those include cooking, lighting, heat, and communication. So all of those essential services of life. That's the real world experience. The real world experience is folks that are having to choose between paying their hydro bill and paying for groceries. In the experience that I've seen in communities, it means folks with broken or inadequate heating systems. It means some folks heating their homes with their ovens. So some really very, very striking and very real human impacts. We do also define energy poverty quantitatively. So thanks to a lot of the groundbreaking work that Allison has done in establishing metrics and statistics around energy poverty and leading out of some excellent graduate work that folks like Miriam resided. We have a common metric in Canada, which is households that spend more than twice the national median on their energy bills. So that's more than 6% of after-tax income. By that metric, there's over 270,000 households in BC that experience energy poverty. And energy poverty is a distinct issue from income poverty. It's driven by a combination of factors that compound each other. So household income is certainly one of those, but also the price that you pay for energy and what type of energy you have access to as a result of your geographic location and the circumstances of your housing has a large impact. As well as, of course, the energy efficiency and energy use of your home. Next slide there, Laura. And this has some very real implications for human health, for equity within our communities, within our societies. Some of the findings that Allison unearthed through her previous research is really striking. We know that recent immigrant households, racialized households, Indigenous households can be at greater risk of experiencing energy poverty, depending on, again, where they are and what their housing circumstances are. In our work with rural, remote, and Indigenous communities, we see disproportionate impacts on communities that are non-urban, especially communities that rely either on diesel fuel, on biomass heating, or that are otherwise reliant on inefficient electric heating like baseboard heaters, pay up to 3 times the provincial average for their bills. What does that mean in real terms? That usually means $3,000+ a year. There's some really excellent health-related research coming out now that shows that being in energy poverty, being in inefficient housing, those two are often linked, are very strongly linked to respiratory and cardiovascular disease. So the experience of being cold or damp in your home is linked to premature death from heart disease. Cold and mold leads to higher incidence of respiratory illness, and even the use of natural gas in the home has been linked now fairly strongly to asthma and poor health outcomes as a result of NOx and particulate matter, PM2.5. So we strongly believe, because of all of this, that having adequate and affordable energy access and a home that's in good repair and is healthy is a human right. That's the fundamental tenet of Ecotrust energy work. We believe we all need a place to live that's safe and comfortable, to be able to heat our homes and cook without fear of not being able to pay the energy bills. So next slide, Laura. This is what we wanted to keep in mind as we went through this research. The markers of a successful income qualified retrofit program must keep those human rights and equity implications of energy poverty and energy consumption in mind. I think this is the single biggest issue we see across the board in North America with programs today. They are designed on the whole to save the utility and the ratepayer money, not to create healthy homes and not to drive affordable bills for those households that experience the impact. So a truly successful program, in our mind, must start from the ground up with those equity-based outcomes, including recruiting and enrolling the highest possible percentage of households that meet those criteria of eligibility, whatever they may be, delivering energy savings that are measurable and lasting and maximized for those paying the utility, not maximized across the portfolio for the ratepayer. Program that improves household comfort, household safety, and that's everything from air quality to adequate heat to moisture. And also considering the fundamental principles of equity in every aspect of program design, implementation, and evaluation. So just very briefly, next slide, Laura. When we talk about the dimensions of equity, what do we mean? There's several components that a program needs to address, and we tried to keep these in mind as we went about our research. So procedural equity is all about engagement and fair representation. So a good example of how not to do this is how BC Hydro currently conducts its engagements in English only, despite 30% of their customers speaking another mother tongue at home. Distributional equity, this is where the concept that Allison touched on of targeted universalism comes in, which is having the same program goal for everyone, in this case, affordable access to adequate clean energy, but that those disproportionately impacted need targeted resources. For example, these households that we see that are paying $3,000 a year for their bills. Structural equity is all about historical, institutional, and cultural structures that subordinate other groups. A prime example of this is the structural inequity we see in Indigenous communities that are dealing with a legacy of poor quality, colonial-built CMHC housing that performs very poorly, and ongoing economic disadvantage and inherited traumas. And finally, transgenerational equity. The touchstone for this in our time, of course, is climate change and the impact of, for example, programs that continue to promote the use of natural gas on the future generations, our children and our grandchildren. So with that, I'll pass that on to Laura to talk a little bit about the research that we did.
Great. Thank you, Allison and Dylan. So I'm really excited to share some of the results of the research that we've been conducting throughout the winter. And I would like to mention that we have published a report. It's available on the Ecotrust website, as well as a link to this is provided in the appendix of these slides, which will be provided to everyone who participates in this webinar. So I highly recommend taking a look at that if you're interested and you want to learn more. I'll touch on things at a summary level, but if you would like to take a bit of a deeper delve, I highly recommend taking a look at that. So first and foremost, I would like to say a big thank you to everyone who participated in an interview throughout the winter. So these series of interviews help to inform the journey map, which we'll get into shortly. Also, our report has a series of program profiles that highlight some better practices and some lessons learned from energy programs from across North America. And a special thank you to Brenda Willington from BC Hydro and Carol Suhan from FortisBC, who provided lots of feedback and information on their energy conservation assistance program. Also, I do want to say a few shout outs. I see some of our interviewees are attending this webinar today, so very happy to see your names pop up as you're joining in, and thank you for being here. So a bit more about the Energy Conservation Assistance Program, or ECAP. We chose to take a deeper look at this program, which is administered by BC Hydro and FortisBC. So ECAP has existed since 2008, and since then, several programs that are very similar have emerged across North America. So we felt it was worth taking a deeper dive to look at what's working and what isn't working. Also, we wanted to take a look at the customer experience in this program to better understand some pain points in their process and understand how that can be improved upon. So ECAP is an income qualified program. Their goal is to reduce energy consumption, reduce energy bill costs, and increase comfort in low income households in BC. There are 3 streams for ECAP. One is for individual applicants. One is for bulk applications from nonprofit housing associations, and there are also bulk applications for Indigenous communities. The scope of our research focused on individual applicants who can live in a variety of homes, such as a single-family detached home, a townhome, a row home, a duplex, a mobile home, an apartment, or a condominium. ECAP includes energy coaching and 2 tiers of weatherization and energy efficient product installations. And the level of support that a household will receive is dependent on their housing type, their home efficiency, their home safety, which we'll get into shortly, and also their heat source. So whether they are heated by electricity or natural gas. So a large part of our research, as I previously mentioned, was creating this customer experience map, which is also can also be referred to as a journey map. This tool is commonly used in other sectors as well, such as the healthcare system, to better understand an individual's experience through healthcare treatment. I had a lot of fun speaking to people about the program and mapping out the experience of individuals through ECAP and looking to better understand places where the program could be improved. So what you see on the screen is a summary of the different stages of the ECAP program. A more detailed breakdown of each step is provided in our report and the appendix to these slides. So if you are wanting to learn more, as I said previously, I highly recommend checking that out. But to summarize this, a customer begins in the recruitment phase, shown here in orange, where they learn about the program and decide whether or not they're going to apply. Next, they decide that they are going to apply, and now they're going to gather their necessary documents for their application. This is the enrollment stage, shown in yellow. For ECAP, it's necessary that individuals provide proof of income documentation. Next, a customer makes it to Tier 1 support, or the the minor support, which is shown here in light green. And this includes an initial site visit to their home and installation of light efficiency and weatherization, such as LED light bulbs, weather stripping, and water efficient shower heads. For those homes that now have low efficiency, they may qualify for Tier 2 or advanced support, which is shown here in the dark green. And at this stage, they may qualify for an efficient fridge, a high efficiency furnace, or even insulation for their home. The final stage here is where customers have the chance to provide program feedback and the program wraps up. So while this looks very clean and linear on this screen, this is not at all the reality of the customer experience through the ECAP program. So I'm going to do a bit of a breakdown here of a bit more of the reality of what does happen at each step, some of the pain points, and some of what we recommend for improvements for ECAP. So in the recruitment phase shown in orange, we're looking at how ECAP advertises, the messaging, the platforms they use, even the images. So when an individual looks up a program, they should feel like it's meant for them. It could benefit their life, and it seems like it would be easy to participate. When they look at the pictures, they should see themselves represented. Furthermore, we have found that passive advertisements such as social media or websites, posters, even energy bill inserts, which are used primarily for ECAP, they do not work as well as active advertisement through word of mouth, utilizing community connections, etc. So if advertising is not active and it is not designed for the people they are trying to reach, customers may be lost from the program at this first stage. And this is what we noticed with ECAP. So next we get into the enrollment phase, and a major pain point in this step is the requirement to provide proof of income documentation. So ECAP administrators, have improved this step, trying to make it easier for customers by increasing the type of documentation they provide. So there's a long list of papers that are eligible to provide proof of income. However, there are still customers who find it uncomfortable to provide their income information to an energy company where there may not be an established trusting relationship. This is especially prevalent if an individual has a history of their energy being shut off from their inability to pay energy bills. They may also have problems finding or filing the paperwork. In my interviews, I had several accounts of people mentioning that community members had troubles accessing a computer, a printer, a photocopier to get their paperwork submitted. So the enrollment process is the first impression of a program. And it is important that it is quick, easy, and accessible, as that will indicate to customers that the rest of the program will be as well. So next we get into the Tier 1 support, the assessment phase, and a lot happens here. So someone finds out whether they have been accepted to ECAP or not, and the first home visit is arranged and takes place. Now, the first pain point here is the decision as to whether someone has made it into the program or not. According to our research, the main reason that someone may not be eligible for ECAP is because they do not meet the low income requirements. Now, unfortunately, simply looking at someone's income does not always tell us whether they are experiencing energy poverty or not. What we found in looking at other programs is they're using a different metric to allow people to be eligible for their program. So some programs are using energy cost burden instead, which balances not only a household income, but also the energy bill cost. So in this phase, people also require to schedule a home visit with the contractor, It's On Electric. Now it's important to note that when they get, or if they get to the Tier 2 eligibility shown in dark green, they work with a different contractor for those retrofits, and there might even be a subcontractor of that contractor. So there's quite a few people that homeowners are required to meet with and schedule appointments with throughout this process. And some of the feedback we got was that this gets quite confusing for homeowners and program users. So to make this assessment phase faster and more efficient and to build trust with homeowners, we recommend that ECAP and similar programs hire regional program coordinators to better serve the people in their specific areas. So next we get to the dark green performance stage, and this is where customers make it to tier 2 or advanced level of support and where the real home energy saving measures can occur. So unfortunately, what we have found is that very few people actually make it to this stage. If they have qualified for ECAP, many only receive the light levels of support. So in this phase, what people can be eligible for is a high efficiency furnace, a fridge, or insulation. And common reasons why a household may not qualify for level 2 or advanced support is because their home has already received ratings of moderate home efficiency, meaning that it's not quite in desperate enough need of getting this advanced support, according to the program administrator metrics. Or there are concerns to safety, such as mold in the house, vermiculite, poor ventilation, or structural barriers, such as a wall that is inhibiting the installation of a new furnace. So unfortunately, ECAP only covers the cost of energy-specific retrofits instead of looking at the house as a system. This gets into a fundamental question. What is the goal of low-income home retrofit programs? Is it to provide light support to many houses or provide deeper support to perhaps a fewer houses, but to make meaningful strides to shift them out of energy poverty? So I do want to take a moment to identify at a high level some of the shortcomings of ECAP. And I also want to recognize that, as I previously stated, there are several programs across North America that follow this model and who have similar shortcomings in their programs. So the lessons learned here can be applied across North America to other programs. So historical energy retrofit programs for low and moderate income households have not achieved widespread adoption or significant bill savings. So for ECAP, they've only reached approximately 1% of eligible participants. So according to this, it would take several decades to reach all 400,000 of the eligible households in BC. And of those who have participated, their energy bill savings have only amounted to about $100 per year. Also, as I stated in the journey map, it really became quite obvious how complicated the ECAP process is for those who are involved. The communication between BC Hydro, FortisBC, and the contractors to the person participating in the program is confusing. People don't know what is expected of them. They don't know whether they've qualified for additional support. And this can make it hard to stay engaged throughout the program. Also, as I previously stated, mold, structural, or moisture issues in the home make a participant ineligible. This really makes some people fall through the cracks of this program. And what we'll find in our jurisdictional scan coming up next, when we interviewed other programs, they had some ways to work with homeowners to still do the energy upgrades while getting those other projects done as well, to look at their house more as a system and have sustainable changes to help get them out of energy poverty. So some lessons from other jurisdictions. So I don't have enough time to go into these different programs in depth, but I highly recommend looking at our profiles in our report. But I will provide a few high-level summaries and key points from these programs. So an active program recruitment strategy was found to be really important for a successful program. So I'd like to highlight the Affordability Fund Trust out of Ontario. They hired a team of marketing specialists to inform their marketing strategy and learn about which of their platforms, messages, and images, even specific words, were and were not working. They went out and actively found people that they were trying to engage in their program instead of waiting for those people to come to them. Also, the home warming program from Nova Scotia has a very active and passionate program manager who goes out to communities across Nova Scotia and shares program information with town councillors, senior citizens, nonprofits, and actively works with them to get homeowners enrolled in their program. Also, a key important point for a successful program was an easy application process, and this came up in our jurisdictional scan as well. So with the EcoSave program out of the City of Nelson in BC, they have a short application that comes with an application information package, and the program coordinator is easily accessible to help with the program application and help talk through options with individuals who are interested. In California, the Low Income Weatherization Program uses a very interesting and unique tool called the Cal Enviro Screen. So this is a mapping tool that helps to identify California communities that are disproportionately impacted or disadvantaged by the many sources of pollution, and where people are especially vulnerable to pollution's effects. This tool uses environmental, health, and socioeconomic information to produce scores for every census tract in California, so that pollution burdens can be compared and addressed. So with this tool, they are able to target specific census tracts and approach homeowners and multi-unit buildings, and they are pre-qualified, and they just have to engage with them to come and enroll in the program. Next is the easy program access. So 3E Thermal out of Vermont has regional program coordinators who provide program management support to make sure multifamily building projects meet their green building standards. So they work with a building owner from beginning to end and make sure that it meets their sustainability standards and make sure that it meets the needs of the home of the building owner. Also, the Affordability Fund Trust out of Ontario, it has now since wrapped up, but their website was very accessible for an application. There was a simple, easy, and quick application process that was very well received by community members. Finally, is the importance of building trust. And this was something that came up in almost every interview that I had, was the importance of having a trusting relationship with community members who are trying to enroll in this program. When renovating someone's home, they have to trust that the person who is doing the work has their best interest in mind. It often helps if they have spoken with a program coordinator or program administrator, and if someone is coming into their house, that they trust that they'll do good work for them. So I really want to highlight again the City of Nelson and their EcoSave program, who had an excellent relationship talking on the phone with people in the community and working with local organizations to get efficient upgrades to homes and help them to apply for other programs as well. And that was really well received within their community. So that wraps up my summary of our research. I'm going to hand it back to Allison and to Dylan to talk about our recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much, Laura, and thanks for all of your awesome and diligent work in this research and all the interviews you conducted. It was fantastic to work with you on that. So switching gears now, I want to talk a little bit about what did we find as some recommendations going forward, some tangible improvements. We didn't want to just poke holes, we wanted to offer some solutions. So I'm going to start by talking about what can we do to improve the existing program rather than reimagining or replacing it. We wanted to do this because we actually found this is the situation of most income qualified energy efficiency programs across the continent. Many of them are designed in a similar manner to ECAP. So in addition to providing some more transformative recommendations to take home and champion here in BC, we wanted to talk about some so-called procedural recommendations as well. The first one that I have here is around program recruitment for who the program is trying to reach and the barriers that they're facing. Laura alluded really well to all of this around that first step where folks decide whether they're going to apply to participate in the program or not. Some solutions that we identified here, offering materials in languages other than English and through those appropriate community channels. We talked a little bit about advertising with appropriate symbols, language, and images that resonate with the target groups, and having clear and inviting messaging is particularly important for those low and middle income households. We found that some other jurisdictions have had some success in having separate branding, separate website that houses their program, even if it's shared across multiple delivery agents. So currently we see separate advertisements and process from BC Hydro, from Fortis, from PNG, whereas for example in Nova Scotia, their home warming program is a single point of access and a single website. The second recommendation we had was around making the application quick, easy, accessible. This is absolutely critical. We found, again, Laura alluded to time, language, culture, isolation, adding additional barriers. We found in particular a barrier around income qualified programs, which is that requirement for proof of income. People are inherently sensitive to provide proof that they are poor. This will turn away a lot of folks. One of the interesting things that we came across probably about a year ago now, actually, is in chatting with folks that set up the Ontario Electricity Support Program administered by the Ontario Energy Board. They have a really interesting example of streamlined income verification through a direct partnership with the Canada Revenue Agency. So on the application for that program, a homeowner will submit their information and the CRA will be contacted to confirm on a yes or no basis whether the applicant meets the income threshold for that program. So this means that the utility, even the government agency, in this case the Energy Board, that's the delivery partner, doesn't actually ever have to know the applicant's income. The third recommendation here was around sort of a regionality model, how inherently solutions look different for homes in Metro Vancouver compared to those in northern, rural, remote, and Indigenous communities, particularly communities that are remote, but even communities that are rural and tend to be off the natural gas grid, have larger, older single-family housing, very different context from the urban folks in rental housing experiencing energy poverty and trying to access this program. So we felt that it would be an interesting model to see regional program coordinators that understand the challenges faced by folks in their region and really working to build that trusting and lasting relationship. This becomes a question of efficiency versus efficacy. Is it better, as is currently done, to have the lowest cost program delivery solution with one or two program delivery agents that are able to serve the highest density areas? Or is it better to have the most impactful program? Certainly, we think given the low participation rate currently, there's clearly room to further build trust and engagement in addition to the issues we've already pointed out with improving impact. Fourth recommendation here around more comprehensive funding that can shift folks more meaningfully to healthier housing and lower bills beyond $50 to $100 per year. Laura alluded to some of the structural issues that we see in homes that are trying to access Tier 2 of ECAP. We know that many households are disqualified if there are any non-energy problems that are identified and need to be addressed. Doing this is simply not possible for most of the homes that end up being disqualified for that reason. This is deeply problematic because the homes that need deep retrofits to this program the most are the ones that are not eligible. Other retrofit program coordinators have found some unique ways to deal with this problem. For example, the California Low Income Weatherization Program has embedded funding for infrastructure or health and safety work that needs to be done into the budget for the program. In Ontario, the Energy Affordability Program offers fairly modest, but still $500 to $750 to complete some fixes that are preventing an energy retrofit from occurring. And even closer to home, the province's new income qualified incentive program they've signaled that will include some funding for structural and safety issues. Yeah, so lack of eligibility and participation is clearly the most important issue we're facing here. But let's also put another issue on the back burner for another day, some of the measures that are included in Tier 2. Is it really appropriate to be offering a high efficiency natural gas furnace when we know that natural gas has health and climate impacts and will be phased out over the coming decades, causing additional costs down the road for these homeowners, rising fuel costs as the carbon tax increases? Or is it more appropriate, for example, to recommend the installation and fund the installation of an electric heat pump as a priority for the program? Finally, the final point around curating and navigating support so that they can access other programming and other funding. We definitely believe that governments can and should administer their own income qualified energy programs, including bill subsidies, rebates, financing, but that the utilities and the ratepayers doesn't mean that they should be let off the hook in funding programs like ECAP. Ratepayer funded programs are durable, they're long lasting, they can continue to exist for as long as the Utilities Commission approves those programs. In contrast, unfortunately, taxpayer funded programs can be vulnerable to political shifts, changes of government, budget restrictions. Rather, we'd like to see utilities strive to improve upon the programs they have so they achieve meaningful results, and then also see programs like ECAP be a stepping stone to other offers that perhaps government or another agency delivers, programs like Clean BC that are offering rebates on equipment, fenestration, insulation, alternate financing. All of these are pieces of the puzzle. So those are some of the procedural recommendations we had, and then I'm going to pass it off to Allison. As she already mentioned a little bit about what this report is and is not, but let's talk a little bit about the bigger picture as well.
Yeah, thanks, Dylan and Laura. So we're at about 15 minutes to the hour, so I want to make sure that we have time for questions because we've got a lot going on in the chat and we have a lot of expertise on the phone today. So I'm going to whip through these fairly quickly so that we can do that. But please do read the report. It's excellent. And I just want to say to the both of you, I am just humbled by working with you both. You've done, I mean, you are so amazing, but Laura, you've done such a great job with this. You know, she did countless interviews. And to those who she interviewed, thank you so much for spending the time you did with her. Anyways, this has been one of the best projects I've worked on in the last few years. I'm just so pleased with how it went and the results that have come out of it. And so I hope y'all really enjoy reading the report and it's useful to you. We really did try to make this very user-focused for the practitioner. So here are the outcomes-based recommendations we came up with. So you can see them there. And one is, you know, set targets for the program based on what your goals are so that you can actually measure your impact towards this goal. So let me just give you an example here is that the ECAP goals are good ones. They say that their ECAP goals to support low-income households are by reducing energy consumption, by reducing energy bill cost, and by increasing home comfort. Those are great goals, but unfortunately the metrics being used to report on the success of the program are a disconnect to those goals. So the metrics are number of customers served, achieving program budget, number of energy savings items installed, deemed energy savings, and customer satisfaction, which is done as a quick outgoing survey. So that doesn't really go to whether or not we're reducing people's energy bill costs, we're improving their home comfort or reducing their energy consumption. So that's one that actually can be dealt with in the current program as it is. It's just let's look at those goals, see if there's any other goals that we need to have, And then let's look at what are the metrics that will actually track towards those goals and see if we're achieving the outcomes we're looking for. The other one is, and Dylan's already gone to this, so I won't talk to this too much, is around aligning the program's goals with these other mandates. So let's recognize that for these particular households, there's a lot going on. There's marginalization in other areas. So let's talk about poverty reduction alongside energy savings and alongside greenhouse gas savings. We can't be talking about climate action and transition to a net zero community if we're not talking about how we're going to make sure that everyone is moving along with us, having clean access to clean and affordable energy. All households need to be able to participate. And at the moment, there are way too many barriers to access, and the programs that do exist do not deliver the results that we need. And finally, those 4 dimensions of equity, this is central to the work that Yasmin and does it with Empower Me, is, design for the people you're looking to serve. And that means you need to start by being really inclusive in the process of the design and having those targeted populations be included from the get-go, and then making sure that you're addressing all the needs to barriers to access and disproportionate benefits and burdens that we've talked about throughout today. I'm trying to skip through those a little bit, so I'm not doing a great job of explaining those recommendations, but they're well written out in the report, and I hope you all check it out. My leaving thought is, Laura, it has been such a pleasure to work with you. I would work with you all day long, anytime. So when you are done with this other summer program, working with Native Friendship Centers, that which is hugely important and amazing. So I'm not going to take you away from there, but man, if you ever find yourself looking for work, you come back to us, and both Dylan and I would love to be working with you again. It's been such a pleasure. Anybody else want to jump in? Otherwise, we'll let it leave.
I can't stop that. Thanks so much, Allison, and thanks, Laura, and thanks everyone for joining today.
I will just say a few closing things. Absolutely, if people have questions specifically about the research, some more details, I'm happy and available for email or phone conversations, as I know sometimes it is hard to get hands-on on recent and relevant research, and happy to build bridges to help advance this conversation, absolutely. And so Dylan and Allison's contact information is available on these slides, but also they can connect anyone with me who might want some of the knowledge from the research. And also, I just want to thank everyone for coming. I know several people have had to drop off, but it really meant a lot to share with people today. And also, I have so much gratitude for Allison and Dylan and all that they've shared with me. Those people who were here from Alberta, I'm an Alberta person as well, just here for my master's and part of the Alberta Energy Futures Lab, so always interested in that Alberta conversation as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.